Between aging and busy lifestyles, many women struggle with maintaining their physical and mental wellness. At Aquavita Concierge Healthcare Services for Women, we can help you revitalize your health and reclaim your life. We start from within by balancing your hormones, allowing your body to achieve and maintain desired weight goals. We also specialize in peptide therapies, regenerative medicine, sexual health, and aesthetics in our state-of-the-art facilities. Feel better, look better, live better at Aquavita. Visit aquavitality.com and begin your journey today.
This episode is brought to you by Let's Productions. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn. See you there.
I've spoken to some of the military witnesses. One of them described getting close enough to this thing when it was on the ground. He said he touched the side, he saw symbols on its hull, which he said were a little bit like Egyptian hieroglyphs, so who knows?
I guess we saw it about twice the height of the treetops from several hundred metres away, something that looked like at first like a blimp, but as we drove closer to it, it looked like a circle of round orange lights. Except in those lights, there appeared to be figures standing in the shadows. Inside, behind the orange lights, you could see silhouettes of tall, dark figures. And I had enough time to say to my husband, look at the people in the windows, when it shot off to the left of us, and in a couple of seconds it was totally gone.
However, there have been a certain percentage of this volume of reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things. It is this group of observations that we now are attempting to resolve. A basic difficulty in dealing with these is that there is no measurement of them that makes it possible for us to put them in any pattern that would be profitable for a deliberate, custom sort of analysis to take the next step. We have, as of date, come to only one firm conclusion with respect to this remaining percentage, and that is that it does not contain any pattern of purpose or of consistency that we can relate to any conceivable threat to the United States.
Executives, Coastal Bend, and Corpus Christi, Texas. And you're listening to the Alien Strand podcast with Donald Ledesma. Buying or selling, visit me at kellygreenrealtor.com or visit me on my Facebook page, Kelly Green Realtor. See you there.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Alien Strand podcast. Welcome to today's show, and I hope you guys enjoy all the content that Alien Strand has put out there in the past. We have about going on number 61, which is today's podcast, and I've given you guys some time to go back listen to those podcasts again, get some more information in, and just to, catch up. And sometimes you got to go back and listen to those again, so that way you can get all the right information you need, and all the stories that have come out, and in the past, and just to get your mind refreshed a little bit. So I've gone into a little, laid low for a little bit because I just got so busy with Led's Productions, and I've been making music videos and just kind of doing everything, and of course working my job at the same time. So it's really hard to put in these podcasts, but I'm going to try to get as many as possible in here. As you guys know, or if you don't, I do have Led's Productions, and it's a small filming company that I have, and we're starting to make commercials and all that nice little stuff. So if you hear it in these podcasts, yeah, it's out there. And we have a movie that I wrote. I'm still writing. I'm almost done with it. It's called Eden, and we're going to be filming that. It's a sci-fi movie. It's going to be a small independent film, not very long, so it's going to be out there though. It's called Eden, and it's a post-apocalyptic film. So we're going to get it all together. Hopefully we'll be shooting in a couple of months. So keep an eye out for that. If you can, go to Facebook, go to Eden's page, and you'll see a couple of the small, preview trailers about what it's going to be about. All right. So thank you guys for sticking around, and thank you for coming back to the show. And I'm glad you're listening to this show and other alien podcasts, shows that are out there, especially with UFOs and everything like that, because we're all out here working together. Right. So, you can catch us on Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, alienstrand.com. Check us out there. We're everywhere. You can check us out on iHeart, Spotify, Castbox. We're everywhere. So if you have a chance, if you don't have a downloaded platform, well, Alien Strand has their own downloadable platform on Android only so far. So it's on Google Play. So if you go there, go to Alien Strand Podcast, download it. It's a player for you guys. You can catch up to all the shows. It'll tell you when a new one's coming out. It'll even tell you while I'm going live sometimes. Today's not a live show, fortunately, but when I do go live, you can interact with me. You can actually put comments on there, and I'll be reading them, as I go through the live podcast, like a live radio show. So we have that going on as well. So if you can, download that little small platform there. It's called Alien Strand. There on your Google Play or your Android device or your tablet, right? So you can be laying there checking it out, or just listening to it while you're watching some TV or getting ready to go to bed, right? And we really do appreciate you for doing that. Alienstrand.com, I'm going to start updating it as much as I can, getting more. Man, I've gotten so many photos, so much information, and that new video that just came out this week, a couple of days ago in, I believe, Quebec, Canada, on the 31st here of March. And it was a UFO that just appeared over the sky there. It looked like, I posted the video, so there's fire trucks very below. I mean, it's a close-up shot of it. You could see the fire trucks all lit up, and then above the fire trucks, top left, you can see something starting to appear, like a bright orb of some kind of light, right? And then it splits up into 3 different orbs, like a triangular shape, what I always talk about in my podcast, right? So you can see that for yourself, and it happened live, in front of people, a bunch of people. So a lot of people caught that on their phones. I even posted the photos of people actually taking photos of it, so you can see that on our Facebook page there. So if you have a chance, go there, comment, share as much as you can on Facebook. I keep everything open to the public as far as the Facebook, so that way you guys can share that content to everyone else that is still learning ufology and getting into it. If you're just getting into it, well, welcome to this to ufology, and welcome to today's show. I hope you guys enjoying the content that I put out there in the past of all these stories, and it's just my passion, what I love to do during my busy work schedule, I still put a little time aside for you guys and to get this information out, because I think it's important, for the folks out there that are going through these things and getting their stories out. I believe my podcast prior to this one, I had a guest on the show, and she was able to, tell her story on her abductions and what was happening to her, and how she was able to fix a lot of those things herself, and how she found other places to help her figure out exactly what was happening to her. Catch that podcast number 60 right before this one, and she'll give you a lot of information. She had a great book. Her name's Lisa O'Hara, right? Good friend of mine already. I would talk to her a few times. If you can't, go to her webpage or check her out. Get her book. Really great book. And I'm sure she'll have more information in the future for us to learn about. So today's show, it's a topic that it's been out there for a while, and I love getting into these older shows, not shows, but the older stories, because they're just so genuine. Back then we didn't have all that, CGI and all that good stuff that they could put in their stories, or even their imaginations weren't even as much as we are now, as far as getting these images out there to make our minds expand more on what we're seeing out there. Even it's kind of strange to say it this way, but if you notice the old UFOs that you're seeing, the old photos, the old pictures, the disc-like shapes, right? And then after the 2000s and up, when CGI started coming out, even a little bit before that, you started seeing these shapes of these ships start turning into more impressive looking crafts in the sky, right? And that kind of makes me wonder at times, why all of a sudden from all these photos in the 1900s and the 1800s, to their early 2000s that we caught, original old Kodak camera images, that they all have the same shape, and then all of a sudden they start changing shape, right? Which I hate to say it that way, but it just kind of makes me think that, it's too much things that we're putting into it that's may not be real out there, but there's a lot that is real, and that disc saucer shape seems to be 98.9% of the shape that you're going to see on a craft or a UFO, or a diamond shape. So these are the main two that are going to be the most probable that you're going to find. As far as in an image or a video, those are the ones that now we have the triangular shape, the TR3B, that they just put out the information out there, that it's out there already. They released it to the public for us to see now that they are actually, or they did actually put this craft together. Triangular shape, floating above the sky, huge, has a little bit of magnetic propulsion as well. It only uses, I think, 11% of its power to move around. So they learned how to change its I guess it's thrusting power to move, stay in a floating position, and to accelerate at a high speed, only using 11% of its, its trajectory or its engines, So, and that's what, our science is actually starting to expand in that sense. And which brings me to this next story, this new story that I'm going to tell you right now. It's been around, and I've read it a few times, but I never got to really dig deep into this story. This is episode number 61, 1958, and I called it The Trip. This happened to this gentleman in Sarandi, Brazil. His name was Artur Berlet. He was of a German descent. And this happened on May 14th, 1958. He was traveling in the town of Sarandi, around the area, to collect unpaid accounts of his photography. That's what he was. He was a photographer. He talked about he had different jobs, but he ended up sticking to photography. So he was traveling on foot until he came to a fork in the road. He says this was about 11 miles from Natalino. I guess that's the next town over. He said the time was about 7 p.m. Then he said, something caught my attention above the sky. And it was at the edge of the woods. He said this object was about 200 yards or 200 meters of where he stood on the road. And that's about 600 feet or so from where he was standing. So he's looking at on the edge of the road, right by the woods where the woody area begins, and he sees this craft, orb-shaped craft, hovering there. But he didn't know what it was still. He says he looked at it and he thought it was like a supernatural thing that there's a legend of there in that town. He says it could have been from a popular legend of a burial of a treasure that was buried there, right? So he says, well, he saw this light. And he goes, well, maybe it was supernatural telling me that that's where that treasure is. That was his first thought. He moved a little closer to the orb. He stepped through a wire fence. He says it was around, at that point, that craft was around 30 meters from him, which is a lot closer now. He said he was in shock to see it had like rounded material in the light. He said that craft was about 30 meters wide as well. He said it looked like two bowls that were inverted over one another. And to us, that's your typical saucer shape, right? So if you get two bowls, put them on inside of each other, you get your saucer shape. This was what he was looking at. He says the colors reminded me of a hot iron between red and ash. But what we don't know about Artur is that he goes, I could not describe the colors very well because he was a little bit colorblind. He could see some distinct colors, but not a full spectrum like what we see. He said at that point, he felt that he had to back up and walk backwards and flee. But he said, I stayed. I needed to see. And wrap my mind around what I was seeing, he says. He was just trying to rationalize it. That's why he never left. Then he says, suddenly, two shadows emerged from a beam of light that hit him He says, at that point, I lost my senses. When he woke, he found himself on a white bed. He said it was hospital-like. He said, quote, could not raise my arms. They felt imprisoned. Because I was in a rectangular shaped room, but one side was rounded. Then at that point, he got the impression that he was on board some kind of ship. He then saw movements of people who seemed to be alien to him. He says, I addressed him in different languages. They looked at him puzzled and indifferent. Then they got him, helped him up. They moved him to a different part of the room. He said, I felt real weak at that point. So he passed out again. He woke up again, saw shelves with clothes. He said the clothes looked like a long cape with long sleeves. At that point, he just figured he needed to change into those clothes. After he did that, 2 guards walked in the room. At that point, they grabbed him again. He says, we walked a few short steps down to a lower area. Then another door opened. Then we took a few more steps down to a basement looking kind of room. They walked him through a small corridor, through a few more rooms, he says. He says, finally, a door opened. And to his amazement, he saw ground and a city that was completely different. He said, I felt enormous dizziness. He says, I felt like I lost half of my weight. He said, I was still held by both arms by these beings. He says, at that point, the buildings looked like they were shimmering some colors. He says, the brightness was enormous. He says, I've never seen anything like that before. They accompanied him down. He says, it looked like a street with strange lights, strange buildings. He said, I saw pedestrians. They were dressed differently. He says the crew of the ship that he was on used a thick black jumpsuit overall. He says it was still a strange color I couldn't recognize. He says we walked about 300 meters and then we entered a tall building. We went down another corridor, about 15 meters, and they're still holding him at this point. He says he described the buildings. He said they looked metal-like material, all metallic, he says. They took him to another room and they left him there. At that point, he was confused. He didn't know what he was doing there or what was about to happen to him. He says all of a sudden he sees this clear tube and water starts coming out of there. He was so thirsty, he said.
Between aging and busy lifestyles, many women struggle with maintaining their physical and mental wellness. At Aquavita Concierge Healthcare Services for Women, we can help you revitalize your health and reclaim your life. We start from within by balancing your hormones, allowing your body to achieve and maintain desired weight goals. We also specialize in peptide therapies, regenerative medicine, sexual health, and aesthetics in our state-of-the-art facilities. Feel better, look better, live better at Aquavita. Visit aquavitality.com and begin your journey today.
Did you miss your deadline to renew your Medicaid coverage? You can still send your completed annual review form to Healthy Connections Medicaid. You may be assigned to another health plan, but you can ask to come back to First Choice within 60 days of renewed Medicaid eligibility. It's your family. It's your choice. First Choice is the right choice. Renew and choose us. Visit selecthealthofsc.com/renew to learn more.
He drank some of the water. He said the bed there was solid. He sat on it. He said it was soft and decided to lay on it. He said at that point, I felt hungry. And he kept on thinking to himself, where am I? Who are these people? And why have they imprisoned me? He was thinking about his family the whole time. He was thinking, what if I never come back? He said moments later, 3 people entered the room, one being a woman. And if you're wondering what these extraterrestrial look like, he said they look like human beings. They look like people. He said she had a bowl in her hand and placed it down. Then they left. He looked in it and he says, it was food. But I couldn't recognize the contents in it. He said the meat looked different. It was separated into 3 or 4 portions of different food. He said the others had a consistency of gelatin and a dark piece that had the consistency of bread. He ate a little bit of it and he said it had a different taste to it. He knew it was meat, but he couldn't recognize the taste. He said they ended taking him to a meeting room of some sort. He says, I was sitting there with them. They were all speaking, but I couldn't understand them. He said they spoke for about 20 minutes or so. He said, I thought to myself, what a strange race. Humans. He said they were like Russian-like people. He said, then I got up and addressed them in Portuguese. I addressed them in Spanish. I addressed them in Italian. Until he murmured something in German. At that point, he got one of their attention. One of them got up and said, Dutch? He says, I responded with an affirmative sign. He said at that point, they all left and left him with that man because they knew he could communicate with him. The man told him in German, "Follow me." He says, we went down to the street in the city. He says, I saw a robot man. He says, I saw aerial vehicles in the sky above the buildings. He says, I was so scared. Never in my life have I seen anything like this. He said, the man patted me on my back 3 times. And in German, he told me, it's okay. And he calmed me down. Later, they took him to a doctor so he can be examined. While he was being examined, he asked, are you German? And the man said no. He says, we're Acterian. He said, what place is that? The man said, it's the top of it all. It's no part of Earth. They told him, you are in no danger here. No need to fear. He says that you are in company of people, despite not knowing you, are more your friends than your own people. They told him not to worry. They said, after the earth rotates 10 times, we'll take you back. They even asked him several times, would you like to remain on our planet? But each time he refused because he thought of his family. They told him that their planet one year is 353 days. Every 6 weeks we drop a day. So we have 352 days. We divide it into 11 months of 32 days. But then the first, except in the 6th year, is 33 days. The months are divided into weeks of 5 days. The days are divided into 6 hours. They told him to Earth, it's equivalent to 675 days. So you have to remember that on other planets, or maybe in a different galaxy, their sun or their star, which we call our sun, might be in a different position. Their planet might be bigger, to where it's got a slower spin, slower rotation, to give you a different day. So that's where they get all these numbers from. It's kind of confusing. A little confusing. But I believe I talked about this before. And I explained that from a different planet. How the days would change if it was a bigger planet, smaller planet. that your days would be longer or your days would be shorter, or your years would be longer or shorter. So they said that that planet, Akart, that was the name of that planet, is 62 million miles from Earth. Now, this happened in 1958. So I'm thinking that he maybe misinterpreted 62 million miles to maybe 62 million light years. I see that more of a possibility than 62 million miles. He says after a week, the ship left him 5 miles from his town, Seriandi. At that point, he ran home. While all this information was still fresh in his mind, he went home, drew sketches, notes on the trip. "50 years later, he published a book called From Utopia to Reality: The Real Trip to Another Planet. This book was published. So, all the information that we got out of this story today came from his words, his sketches, everything that he had. They said he had roadmaps in chronological order of the events, original manuscripts, notebooks, over 422 pages of it, plus the camera that was carried to the planet Akart. So there was photos. They said in the ufology world, as we speak, everybody always questioned his story. He never changed anything. Nothing. Not a word, not a sentence. He never changed anything when he spoke about it. When you go back and you read this book, you will see the detailed information, conversations he had with younger children. He had conversations with women. He had conversations about their planet. He had conversations about them if they believe in God. He had conversations with them about the crafts that they have, their propulsion, everything that you've ever thought about to ask an extraterrestrial or an alien. He did. And it's in his book. I didn't read it all to you, because I want you to go see it for yourself. Read his information that he has. Like I was talking about, the UFO community back then in the 1970s and even now still say this man came with a flood of information that could not be made up or invented with all of this detail. He had so much information on this trip. He always wondered to himself while he was on that planet, why did you take me? Why am I here? Why did you bring me here? Artur Berlet, he died in 1980, though. But he was able to tell his story in such remarkable detail that they put it in a book for you to read. So you can see for yourself, read for yourself, and think about everything he experienced in that trip. And you may ask yourself at the beginning or while you're reading it, he just made it up. It's that. No, this is 1958. The details that he gave is almost pretty close of what's happening today in our science and our technology. We're getting close to that. We're not there yet, but we're getting close to it. This was 1958. He'd never seen 1958. I don't know if he's seen buildings back in those days. They didn't look anything like what they look like today. Especially flying vehicles, right? Robots. Flying in these ships. Remember, he was there 8 days. They showed him many, many things. He had many conversations with them. Even about our own DNA and where it all started. Have we heard stories like this before? Yes, I've heard one or two, not very many. But this one's pretty darn close of what we're almost looking for. We're not always going to see little green men, grays, reptilians that are extraterrestrials. We're going to see human-like extraterrestrials or people. Just like Billy Meyer did. They were people. Just like this gentleman did. At first, when you first start hearing this story, you're trying to think, okay, these are, green men or whatever. No. And then you figure out that he's talking to human being-like people. Gets you wondering a little bit, right? As it got me wondering. And I'm glad I was able to get this information out to you guys, at least a little bit of it, so you can hear his story on what exactly happened to him on that day, even on those 8 days. I gave you small snippets of the story. So if you have a chance, go catch that book, look for him, download it, check it out. And then you figure out for yourself of what you believe possibly happened. I believe something happened to him. That's for sure. That is for sure. But I'm glad you guys stuck around. Thank you for listening to Alien Strand Podcast. I think we're like 25, 26 platforms already. Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and alienstrand.com. Go check us out there. You can even ask Alexa. She'll even play it for you. I hope you have got a lot of information out of this podcast today, as I did. And we can start putting this puzzle together a little bit, as we always do with every podcast, right? Especially with these human style, or not human, extraterrestrials. Human-looking extraterrestrials, mind you. These always interest me because it's like, all right, if the little green men, grays or whatever, made us, then why don't we look like that? That always kind of gets me going at the beginning. And then they say, oh, no, we're from the way future, and then you end up turning into us. I don't know. We're still kind of digging into that story and see how that turns out. But until then, you guys have yourselves a good day. You guys have yourselves a good evening. Have yourselves a good night.
What's up, everyone? This is Arizona Gallegos, and you're listening to Alien Strand Podcast with Donald Ledesma. Check out my Facebook page at Arizona Secret Backyard. Hit me a like, share, and follow. I'll see you there.
I've spoken to some of the military witnesses. One of them described getting close enough to this thing when it was on the ground. He said he touched the side. He saw symbols on its hull, which he said were a little bit like Egyptian hieroglyphs, so who knows?
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, oh, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.